Okay, so Charles and I just finished recording a podcast. If you're not familiar, Cars with Cocktails. We talk about cars, general stuff while we drink. We just finished an episode. They just had some leaks of Golf R officials, pictures and stuff like that. So we're going to talk about it real quick to give our first thoughts on it.
Yeah, this is pretty exciting. This is the Mark 8 Golf R official release. Fun fact, the car was actually under embargo through, November 4 at midnight Eastern time. One site leaked it, and then once it was out, everybody leaked it. Unfortunately, Paul or I were not privy to the media side of that, which I'm a tiny bit salty about because I'm a Golf R owner. Therefore, I'm entitled to everything as a Golf owner. But let's get into it. So Mark 8 so far, looking at the pictures, and I'm going to flip back and forth to the pictures here. Paul, let's start on the outside. I think it looks cool. So the release photos were in La Piece Blue, which is a classic R color. I love the color. A lot of people really have been talking like they don't like the front end, that the car's very understated, especially compared to the GTI. All of those things I think are good. I like that the R is not as big and bold and flashy as the GTI. Think about the 7.5s. The GTI has a bigger feel to it, right? It stands out a little bit more than the R is, unless you drive an obnoxious colored yellow one like I do. Very much not a full redesign, in my opinion. This car is a redesign. It should still be on MQB platform.
It's more. It feels more of a facelift to the facelift.
It's like a super facelift where the car does look very different, and side by side, they're going to look very different, but they are going to favor each other a lot. Yeah, and I think that's a good thing.
I agree. I think it has a lot of definitely cues from the Mark 7.5 car, and it feels like an updated version of that. I like the aesthetic. You know, when I made a video a long time ago about when they first released the Mark 8 stuff, and like you normally expect, they show a bunch of golf shit, and it's questionable in terms of like, okay, some angles I like this car, some angles I think it looks kind of weird, but it's always the base version that they're showing you. So it's like, okay, well, most people aren't really looking at especially in the US, the Golf is almost a non-car at this point. You know, like they're sold still.
There is no Golf. There is no more Golf. Right. It's GTI, it's Golf R, and everything else is SUV. But, you know, looking kind of at the side, so I'm looking at the side to slightly favoring the front, very much 7.5 styling, which I think is cool. The headlights, I'm not sure about, like the wraparound of the fascia of the front. I'm not totally sure about yet.
Up top, yeah.
And it's like the 7.5, but bubblier. But I'm also like doing that thing where I'm picturing it lowered and different wheels. I actually, for the first time in a long time, I like the wheels that they're putting on this car right out of the get-go. They have a very BBS feel to them. I really dig them. I think it's going to end up looking super good.
Oh, yeah, those aren't bad wheels. I will say the one wheel that I did like that was on the Mark 7. Yeah, that's not a bad wheel. I do like some of the wheels that came on some of the Mark 7 Golf Rs. The Pretoria is a wheel that I'm particularly a fan of. I think it's a good looking wheel. They're really light. They also happen to be very expensive. If you have them on your car and you bend one, good luck.
Yeah, they're made out of Play-Doh, yeah. I think. So love the front end. It's not my favorite Golf front end ever, but I really like it. And I think it favors the next progression of where we're at in the VW world, right? Moving down the sideline is very close to what the 7.5 is. Like not a whole lot of change there. It looks like, based on this picture, that lower skirt is a little more pronounced. It's also color matched, which may or may not change, obviously, when we get one in the showroom.
The one thing I will say is I actually thought they were the same car silhouette-wise, and I actually thought it was legitimately just a facelift to the facelift. And then I compared them side by side back when I made that video way back when, and they're definitely different. Like the window lines are different. The roof line is slightly different. Like there's some different changes there. The taillights originally, and I said it in that video, is it felt very SUV like in the other renders that they had, but pictures I've seen since then feel a lot less SUV like to me than the current ones, the pictures that I've seen of cars in the wild, especially because the market exists in Europe currently. So I've seen real world pictures, especially modded cars. I know we've posted some on our social media stuff of actual real cars that were like lowered or whatever, of Mark
Yeah,
8s.
I like the back end. It is very SUV like, right? But look, it's the Golf. It's basically a little SUV.
It
So
is
it makes
essentially,
sense.
yeah.
It makes sense that it's that way. Again, even moving down to the rear, the pictures that they have out, a bigger rear spoiler. Maybe that'll help keep the back end of the car cleaner, which is very problematic on the 7.5. Also, if you don't wash your car all the time, that's a problem too. But I like, I'm looking at this and, I didn't notice it at first, but the more I look at this, I like the taillights. They look kind of like a combo between an Atlas and a 7.5 Golf R taillight, which is cool. They've taken the R badge and centered it underneath the VW emblem in the center of the deck lid,
Yeah.
or the tailgate, I guess, or the trunk lid, whatever you want to call it on this car. It looks really good there. I really like it a lot.
Yeah, I think they're centering actually all the badges from on the Mark 8. So that seems to be a thing that they're going with now. So aside from that, I think I don't know if they're going to have fake exhaust tips on those on the R yet or not. They had
it doesn't look like it, but because it's like quad exit, it doesn't look like they're going to be fake. Also, the what the heck do you call this thing on the back? The splitter, I guess. The splitter section on the back right above the exhaust, that trim looks like it stands out a little bit more than the 7.5, which is kind of cool. I bet this car has one of those Oettinger body kits on it.
probably.
As I'm looking at this now. So I wouldn't be surprised if the R does not look exactly like this when we see it here. And according to VW, and Paul, I'll let you talk horsepower numbers here in a second. The R is going to be the R everywhere in the world. So it's not like we're going to get a muted horsepower version of the R. It's going to be the same power everywhere in the world, which is pretty damn cool.
Yeah. So in terms of power, I think the power number they listed 315 horsepower. That's what the official number is going to be. Of course, they always list the top speed, which I don't even know why they do at this point, since it's basically just governors anyway. 155 miles an hour, which we'll never get to in the U.S., at least not responsibly.
Who's got a tune out for it already? Let's tune this bad boy.
And then 62 miles an hour in 4.7 seconds. I don't know why they use 62. That's what kind of threw me off there.
It's 100 kilometers.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense.
100 kilometers per hour.
It's the conversion of
Yep.
the. Well, listen, I'm an American.
I love my freedom, man.
I only base everything in freedom units, and that's all I got.
In bald eagles.
Yeah.
So it's important to note that with this 315 horsepower, 10 pound-feet of torque, this is still going to be the EA 888 engine. This is still going to be a version.
I assume it's an IS38, maybe. I don't know.
Probably. I'm guessing that even though there may be some slight changes to the engine and we haven't gotten any engine coding or engine pictures just yet, this is probably largely going to be a software thing. So all of us that got that really awesome stage 1 tune and got a bunch of power, you probably ain't getting that.
Yeah, I certainly that's the one thing that will definitely remain to be seen about that stuff is how much power will be left available. A lot of cars have variable amounts of power that have been squeezed out of them, and depending on if they've modified the turbo, which I assume they probably have, they may have maybe variable valve lift on both cams, or like they could be doing all different things like that. That could be part of the increase along with the added boost or whatever. So obviously we don't know what kind of headroom is going to be left in terms of.
Keep in mind, this is like press release stuff. This is not nerdy VW enthusiast stuff that like we're pining for the really deep dive information. this is not the crap that Car and Driver cares about. They only want the horsepower numbers and some other stuff. That's not a dig on Car and Driver. That's just how like press works. They're not nerdy VW people like all of us are. But there is some pretty cool all-wheel drive stuff coming, y'all. I think what's coming in the all-wheel drive system and some of the software / hardware additions and changes, that's going to be the game changer on 8 over 7.5, because I think the 7.5 was such an amazing car. But if this stuff performs how it should and how it has on other VW Audi or just Audi vehicles, it's going to be killer.
Yeah, I agree. So most notably, I think the one that really stood out to me was it's going to have a torque vectoring rear differential, which essentially allows it to send power to the left or right rear axle, as opposed to having an open differential, which is what we currently have, which my S4 actually has torque vectoring, and I was going to make a video on it. I presume it will probably function in a very similar way, which is kind of like a Haldex clutch for the differential that just allows it to apply power left or right instead of front or rear. That's generally pretty much the way the Audi version functions on my S4, and I presume this will probably be much of the same.
Yeah, I am guessing too. And of course, they talk about some like updated active damping. Of course, right? They're going to update a lot of this stuff. But I think the torque vectoring, and it's going to have a new dynamics manager. Of course, it's going to. It's got new stuff. It's got to have a new way to manage it. Very, very cool. I think that's going to be one of the biggest appeals to this car. There's also a handful of other things. We expect to have updated suspension. I think it said like 10% stiffer suspension, which actually I think the car could totally use. In that race mode, I think having it stiffer would be ideal. They're throwing in a couple new modes. We have sport, comfort, race. The two new ones are special and drift mode. Not a ton of information about what exactly those are going to be. I'm hoping to get some more of that information very, very soon. So we'll follow up and do another video on this. The drift mode, I think they say you're going to be able to throw the car sideways on it, off-road, close course, professional driver.
Yeah, the drift mode, I think, seems to be more like what they say about the special mode is that it's intended for the optimal settings for the Nürburgring, which is still slower than the Type R, but we're talking about a very different demographic of car, and anybody who's compared the two, I think, would know, if you've driven both a Type R and a Golf R, they're in a similar class in terms of like roughly power wise and performance, but in terms of choosing that car for your daily driver, I don't even consider them to be in the same class, because they're very different choices.
Yeah, it's different. And like, look, the majority of the owners of the Golf are never going to take it on the Nürburgring. So I really don't care a whole lot about what the time is. I'm also not a professional driver, so my time would be like 15,000 times higher than that. So a lot of cool stuff. Looks like an R specific master cylinder. So maybe GTI guys, you want to upgrade to an R master cylinder. That would be pretty cool. It is going to have an aluminum, I think, subframe and maybe control arms.
Yeah, probably.
I don't know if it was both. Probably like the S3. Yeah. Aluminum subframe, firmer stabilizer, and the springs are going to be up about 10%. So that's cool. It may be the exact same subframe that Audi's been running for a while, and something that a lot of guys will upgrade on.
Some people do mod them.
Yeah, I think it's a bit expensive of a mod personally for me, but yeah, I am scrolling these pictures, and I got to tell you, I think the outside's cool. There's parts of the interior that draw from the Jetta. Has a very, like, the cockpit front has a very Jetta feel, which is cool. The thing I love, and I hope that we get both of these things, these front seats in this are awesome. They have that like blue carbon fiber on the bolsters and on the center, the black, the side pieces, it looks like, is kind of that black carbon fiber that I think parts of the current R have. The R logo, I'm not a fan of the R logo, but it looks really cool in the seat because the backrest and headrest
They're stitched in blue, yeah. Well, black and
are
blue, yeah.
solid black.
Yeah.
I like that they're going back. I both love and hate that they're going back to the solid seat back without adjustable headrest, akin to the Mark IV. I like the headrest being adjustable because I can mount a camera on the post of the headrest, but that's dumb Charles thing. And I'm looking at this picture, and I hope to God they have put illuminated rear door cards on the back, because it drives me crazy that only the front has it and the rear doesn't. I'm trying to see if maybe we get four-door Kessie, which I would like to take personally that they did that because of me. But yeah, we all know that that's not true. So Paul, give us like your 2-minute hot take on this.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Mark 7R. I think, price point wise, it's going to come in a little bit higher, which again, it's contented up.
Plan for 45.
Yeah, I would say a regular, like one that you're going to want to own. It's going to have the equipment you want. Yeah, I would say 45. They say low 40s. By the time you end it, it's going to be up in that range. The interesting, I think all these modes, I think they're kind of silly modes. The whole drift mode, people went, crazy over the Focus RS for having that drift mode. I didn't really, I always felt like it was a thing like, okay, this is kind of silly to have this drift mode in, but it was one of those things that everybody talked about. So it makes sense. I know why VW would do it, is like, hey, they got a drift mode. Can you fucking believe it? And that's why people go crazy over it. And so, they did it to kind of go along with that trend of people who get excited about things that they probably won't ever use, and if they do, they might crash their car. The other thing about drift mode, I always wonder is, in this circumstance, which the previous, so Golf Rs historically always can max split 50-50, and the RS, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the way they geared the differential allowed it to actually put 60% of the power to the rear based on the actual way that they were geared. So like it was capable of putting more power to the rear, even though it was an all-wheel drive car.
I'm willing to bet that when you couple the torque vectoring ability, you're going to be able to get a significant improvement of rear wheel performance. It's not going to be a rear wheel drive car. You're not going to be sliding it around like you would a rear wheel drive car, but I think it's going to, what I'm hoping is it performs more like a true all-wheel drive vehicle,
and not
rather than a front-wheel drive car that has the ability to turn the rear wheels when traction is problematic.
Well,
so that's my hope on that.
All-wheel drive does understeer as a general rule. Obviously, the more rear driving stuff you have, the better. So if it does bias or have the ability to bias towards the rear, that'd be awesome, because it could kind of counterbalance that stuff. But I wonder if it's just going to be less heavy-handed intervention from the electronics, which the one thing I will say that I think is interesting, and I'm probably most interested to see about it, is that new management system they are using is going to be something different, because historically the way a lot of the way the ABS system and traction control exists is through the braking system. And it sounds like what they're moving towards is full integration with all-wheel drive electronics with stability management. And so it's going to engage that differently based on the all-wheel drive and not just applying brakes to keep the car stable.
Yeah, that's one of those things that we will not know until there's way more technical info out, and that is just not out yet. So hopefully we'll have that information really, really soon. So my quick hot take, it looks like initially be released in black, white, and blue, which is classic. I would love to have seen a tornado red, and silver. But if it's the Arnix white, whatever the white of the 7 is, love that color. One of my favorite VW colors. Exterior, I think it looks great. There's certain angles that I don't love, but I think in person it's going to look even better. I actually haven't been this excited about a Golf in a long time. This is really strange. I'm getting more excited about it when we talk about it. Moving on the inside, I already talked about what I hope for the rear door cards. The seats are beautiful. I hope the rear seats favor the front seats, and it doesn't do like the Type R where you have these really beautiful red, awesome seats, and then just like crappy Honda Civic seats in the back, which is just lame. I don't like, and I've said this before when it first came out, I don't like the shifter for the DSG. For those of you wondering, 100% guaranteed. Yes, it will be coming in a manual transmission. So that's awesome. Even though the DSG is better, you can get your 3-pedal fix if you'd like.
If you want to get DSG, you can flick the bean.
The carbon fiber on the dash, unsure about. I'm assuming it's going to look a lot like the Mark V did. The cockpit looks cool. There's a lot of buttons. I love the blue stitching on the steering wheel. I already talked about this.
I'm personally not a fan of the removal of so many buttons and now going towards the touch displays.
There's a lot of buttons on there, dude. I think you're going to get your button fix on this one. So I'm hoping that this is not shown with an Oettinger body kit or that type of body kit, and this is actually what the R looks like true when it hits the showroom. I'm expecting that's not the case. I'm expecting this is a body kit. Torque vectoring is awesome. The bump in horsepower is fantastic. I'm not sad that I own a 7.5 because I love that car, but this looks like it's going to be a pretty rockin' awesome car. And I think you're going to see prices right at $45,000. Don't expect to have a lot of equipment options. Just like with the 7s and 7.5s, you'll probably get one wheel choice. You'll get manual or DSG, and that's all you get to choose from other than your color.
Cool. Well, I'm sure we'll have more details to come later on, but yeah, wanted to just give you guys quick thoughts.
Hot takes. All right, what do you guys think? Drop your comments down in the below. All right, down in the below. Drop your comments down below. Let us know what you think. I'm pumped. Not going to rush out and buy one, but if I didn't have a 7.5, boy, it would be cool. You know what I'd also love to see? I'd love to see a hybrid of one of these things because I think that would be pretty wicked cool. But I don't think we're in the performance EV VW world just yet.
The GTE is not coming anytime soon, I don't think.
Not today, but it should.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Let us know what you think. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.